There's a lot of things that we put into our blue wheelie bins for recycling, especially plastic, that we could upcycle rather than just throw it away. Plastic bottles, for instance, can be remade to make little plant pots. In fact, self-watering plant pots. I'm just going to cut the label off this one here. I'm using a bodger, which is a hole punch really, and I'm just going to put a marker in here. And then that gives me an opportunity to get the scissors in to cut all the way around the outside. Now, I've got two halves. I'm going to take the top off the bottle, and this then becomes a pot. What I can do is actually put some string through the bottom. Now that's going to act as a wick, because you can use string, you can use wool, anything that will suck up water. So I can plant this top section and then put it into the bottom section with a little reserve of water. Now let me just show you. So there you are, a top section planted up with a wick going down into the bottom section, so the actual part where the plant is planted is not sitting in water, it's just the string or the wool that you've got at the bottom, and that absorbs moisture up through capillary action and waters. And I've got a little geranium cutting in the top there. So plastic bottles work really well, but how do you make a self-watering container for things like window boxes or hanging baskets? Because we love window boxes and hanging baskets, and it brightens up any wall outside the home. Problem is, of course, you've got the eaves of the house coming out, which stops a lot of the rain getting into your hanging baskets or your window boxes, so they have a tendency to dry out because they've only got a small area of soil to be able to hold that moisture. What you really need to do is water them on a regular basis, but to be fair, sometimes you're away for a couple of days and they dry out and it causes damage to the plants. Or even worse, things like hanging baskets, you know, when you've dried out, you're reaching up with the hose, but the water's just going straight over the top of the soil and coming down rather than seeping through. Here's a great tip. Get hold of a plastic bottle that you finish with, spike a load of holes all the way around the bottle, and then bury the bottle actually inside the window box or hanging basket. You can then take the caps off, water the basket itself and fill up these little reservoirs of water, put the caps back on. So slowly that seeps out through the holes, hydrating your window box or hanging basket as it goes. All about recycling. Simple bottles and things like this you can reuse quite easily for your own home. Another big favourite is the milk bottle, and if you've always fancied having a window box but your windows open outwards and you have to put it too far down to be able to garden, and you want to grow something, say some parsley really for soups or garnishes and the like, you can use one of these bottles to create that. So first of all, take the labelling off. Next you need to make an insertion, and what effectively I'm doing is I'm going to cut the handle off. I'm going to cut the whole handle off here. So I'm making a little insertion with my bodger there so it's nice and safe rather than using sharp knives, but you use what you've got. And then I'm cutting along here and up, because I'm just cutting the handle off. And back down here like that. And then I'm going to cut around. There we go. Perfect. So what I've effectively done is just taken that off. Next thing I'm going to do is spike a few holes in the bottle, because you need drainage holes in the container. So by spiking a few drainage holes, it just makes sure all the excess water can drain through, because like a lot of containers, if you don't do that, you find what happens is that they just end up filling with water themselves. Next, I'm going to put some compost in, and finally I'm going to sprinkle some, what have I got here, parsley flat leaf just into the top, and eventually that grows up to look something like this. Now what you can do is, if you've got a home, you can just open the window like that, and through this back section here attach it to the wall. So say for instance outside the kitchen window and you live in a flat or a balcony or something, you can open your window, pick fresh parsley and use it home for cooking. It's all about recycling. Those simple milk bottles can get reused. Another area of plastics is things that you generally chuck away. Anything from, you know, cartons here. What's that? That's a custard one. The little yogurt ones. There's many different types. And of course, all the trays that we get. This one had raspberries in. And there's strawberries. There's a whole host of them. You can reuse these containers to pot up your own plants. They're perfect for it. Of course, the first thing you need to do with anything you can change into a container on a steady surface is spike some holes into the bottom like that to make sure the drainage is there. And once you've done that, you've effectively made it into a container itself. Now, yogurt cartons, I planted up, here we go, look at these. These are my little chilies. Perfect. Into containers. They make great containers. They're a bit funky, they're a bit cool. It's great for the kids to do as well. You can grow seeds into them, into each of them, or little cuttings as you go, geranium cuttings and the like. They're perfect little containers for growing plants. And there's a whole host of them. What have I done here? I've done cream here. I've got some carrots growing in it. To be fair, carrots do grow better in toilet rolls. Have a look at this. I've got a whole host of them, and I can actually plant the whole toilet roll into the ground because it will break down, so I don't disturb the roots. So it's not like you have to take them out the pots and containers. But carrots, because they've got one taproot, obviously the carrot itself, they grow particularly well in toilet rolls. But there's lots of things you can plant as well. This one here, this was humus. It's now a little pot for my geranium cuttings. What else have I got here? While we're doing the hummus, I've also got the halloumi tray. We had a barbecue at the weekend. So the little halloumi tray is perfect as a little seed tray. And also for repotting houseplants and taking cuttings. This is a meringue container and it works pretty well. You can get the kids, of course, to paint these containers if you want them to look more ornamental. But I've got a little crassula or money tree or jade plant in it, whichever common name you use. The other thing, of course, is utilising trays like this as seed trays. So when you've finished, wash them out thoroughly. The raspberry ones have got drainage holes already in, but if you're using containers that haven't, it's the same process of spiking a few holes in the bottom, compost and sow your seed, and they work remarkably well. Here's one that I've got with a load of peas. Oh, they've grown up. They've grown up. So they work well. So you just sow your seeds straight into them. And over here, what have I got? This is for Christmas. This is my Brussels sprouts. All plastic containers you're throwing in the bin that you can reuse. And if you've not grown before, you're bound to have a packet of seeds in the house, either as a free gift in one of the newspapers or magazines, and it's in the cutlery drawer. Save some of the containers that are going into the blue section of your recycle bin and spike a few holes and have a grow yourself. Have a go. That's the magic of gardening. And if you're recycling as well, you're saving money and doing something positive for the planet at the same time.